We can see the patterns emerging in the monetary system. Central banks are moving toward negative interest rates. They're moving toward a place they can't come back from. What will this new paradigm bring along with it? Many believe that the central banks will manage this newfound territory and ensure the financial system doesn't collapse, thereby maintaining order. However, for those who have paying attention, they know that those in control establish order out of chaos, create the problem, provide the solution. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. This is going to be a jam-packed, interesting episode, and I'm going to connect the central banks and what the Federal Reserve, the ECB, are doing. We're going to look at the yield curve inversion. We are going to talk about the financial system and how all of this relates together. So let's get into it right away. Here we are looking at Google Trends, and this is an important website to keep your eye on. In this case here, I'm searching for yield curve, and it shows you that we have never seen this many searches for yield curve ever in history. Of course, right now, the media is really pumping it up. I think they're really whitewashing what it is. But in this case here, all we can do is look at the data itself. This is over the past 12 months, and you can see that spike upward. But I will show you back all the way to 2004. This is the earliest we have. And you could see that it exceeded what we had previously in the cycle before this. That, of course, is for many reasons. Number one being the fact that today everyone is searching online more so than they did back then. The media hypes everything up. We have social media, which just really explodes everything. But I just wanted to show you this because it gives you an idea as to the insight of people. They see something on the news. They look at something that's going on TV. Maybe they heard it from their friend. Maybe it's their coworker. And then they go on the internet and they search that. This tool is very important. Now, it can be manipulated. There's no doubt about it. But we have to take the data that we are given in this case. You could see the interest by sub-region. District of Columbia is the number one on this list. If you go down here in the bottom right corner, they have related queries. And this gives you some insight as to exactly what people are searching, what you would call a long tail keyword. Inverted yield curve 2019, yield curve inversion 2019, what is yield curve inversion, and recession 2019. All of these terms are interconnected, of course. People are worried about this yield curve inversion, and they know that when they see that a recession then follows. That's what they've been reading. That's what they've been searching online. This tells you that people are starting to pay attention. It might be a very small percentage of people. They might not want to actually believe it or think that it's going to come 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or whatever. But at least it tells you that people are aware what this term is about. So that's how I wanted to introduce this topic to you for today. I'm going to get into the yield curve inversions. We're going to look at the central bank activity as well. I wanted to show you this here. While the 2-year, 10-year has been trending lower for years, the 1-year, 3-month collapsed as of November 2018. Here you can see the yellow line, which is the 2 and the 10-year, and look at what happened in the media recently. As soon as it inverted, you had everybody freaking out. And why? For good reason, because every time that happens, a recession follows afterward. There have been many excuses why this time around that's not the case. This time is different. Don't fight the Fed, and any other ridiculous line that you have heard. But then we have this other piece of data, the 1-year, 3-month slope, which had actually inverted months ago. People aren't paying attention to it, but I'll show you a chart in just a second, which will add to the data that we're presented with here. The 1-year, 3-month slope is informative for year-ahead growth and has now turned sharply lower. Take a look at what this means. You're looking at the yellow line, which is that slope, and you can see that this inversion is usually an indication that GDP will fall. The blue line is the GDP, just showing you here what could happen. It is a very good correlation in between these two. There's no denying it. It's not perfect, but it does show you the general direction. If this is any level of accuracy, then of course this is very, very telling. I wanted to bring that to you because I thought that this would be important for everybody to know. The inverted yield curve is doing something weird to mortgage rates. Now, of course, you have two options when you get your mortgage. You can always get fixed or you can get variable. Okay, now usually what happens is the variable is lower simply because you're ultimately taking a risk on that, and the bank with the fixed rate doesn't necessarily know what's going to happen in the future, so they give you a little bit of a higher rate and they can secure you in there for a period of time. This was very trendy to get the adjustable rate mortgages, particularly prior to the housing crisis. Still today, many people are doing variable because of the attractive rates, but something has changed. The gap between the ARMs and the fixed rate loans is now really small because of the inverted yield curve. It's a rare scenario where long-term interest rates suddenly fall below short-term interest rates. ARM rates are kind of all over the place, lender to lender, because they are a very small percentage of new loans origination today, around 6% of total mortgage application volume. As I said, things have really changed in this period of time. People got scared and they said, no, I don't want to do anything that was causing a problem last time around. Okay, so this is what the yield curve inversion does to people on a practical level. I think people need to understand that. Esther George is the Kansas City Fed president, and this is what she said. The Fed's large balance sheet may have helped cause the yield curve inversion. They're always trying to whitewash it. They're always trying to give excuses, but ultimately for most people, they don't care about excuses. They are looking for safety and security. I think the Fed still has a large balance sheet, and that could be putting some downward pressure on those longer term rates. The central bank's balance sheet, which stands around $3.8 trillion of mostly treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, ballooned to as much as $4.5 trillion as the Fed sought to stimulate the economy out of the financial crisis. Today, they are left with nearly $4 trillion worth of garbage they cannot sell and they will have to add to in the near future. Apparently, there was no consequence whatsoever. We have seen the repeated calls to buy more and more. What a big mistake. A few participants expressed the concern that the inversion of the Treasury yield curve, as evidenced by the 10-year falling below the 3-month yield, had persisted for about 2 months. The phenomenon could indicate that market participants anticipated weaker economic conditions in the future and that the Federal Reserve would soon need to lower the Fed funds rate substantially in response. Understand what's happening right here. Even the Federal Reserve is admitting what is going on if you pay attention. They tell you that don't worry, we're going to make sure it's okay, but even the Federal Reserve sometimes will point to the problems. Here you can see that the market isn't really fooled by the Federal Reserve and what they're feeding people. The truth is in the indicators, and no matter how much you try and whitewash it, there are people who are actually paying attention and piecing all of this puzzle together. Fed's Harker doesn't see a need for another rate cut, says central banks should stay here for a while. This is a complete departure from what so many of the others at the Federal Reserve has actually said. This is the Philadelphia Fed president saying that he doesn't see the case for additional stimulus after the Fed's July rate cut. Now this will really upset the markets because they are hoping, praying, and begging the Federal Reserve to decrease interest rates yet again. Even though they said they will do whatever it takes to make sure that they maintain this expansion, even though it's the longest in history, they want it to be pushed off even further, creating imbalances, creating bubbles, and here we have it today. They want more and more and more. The Federal Reserve is in a very big predicament here at this time. Worldwide debt with negative rates has surged to $16.4 trillion. And actually, I believe it's higher than this number, but this is the latest information that they are tracking in this article out of the AP. That was $12.2 trillion in mid-July and $5.7 trillion in October. Until a few months ago, negative yielding debt was an interesting curiosity. In the last 3 months, it's become a mainstay in the market. Can you believe what is happening to this financial system? We're watching the yield curve inversion. We're watching the negative interest rates. We're watching central banks cutting interest rates at a time when they had been cutting for 10 years. It's like everybody bringing a flask of whiskey to their Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and trying to resolve their issues. It's not gonna work. The negative yield phenomena, 87% of it in Europe and Japan combined, is above all sign of pessimism about the future. This is like a temperature gauge for the economy, and it says that the economy is sick. And I completely agree with that. When you see this happening, you can't just say, well, it's because of that. No, something is wrong here, and this is telling you exactly that. You can't get around it. Further along in this article, why would you want to lend money when you can't make money? He makes a very good point. Indeed, bank stocks have tumbled 24% in Europe and 23% in Japan over the past year. Now imagine where they were at if you exclude the boost that they got in the first quarter of 2019. These bank stocks were severely hurting in the fourth quarter of 2018 and since have been unable to recover back to where they were. There's a big problem going on right now in the financial system. And you might think to yourself, why can't they just keep interest rates low? People will borrow for cheaper. That is a good thing. Although I think it's unusual because I've mentioned this many times before, many people simply do not understand. In order to keep interest rates low, in order to actually manipulate interest rates, the Federal Reserve or the central bank of the particular country has to engage in open market operations. Essentially, they have to print money. That's the way they do this. They are purposely forcing interest rates down. In order to do that, it requires open market operations. That means printing money. So the resolution here is to print money. Even when they are talking about interest rates, their only thing that they can do, they're just a printing press. They print money and they hand it out to people all over the world. They keep it in the market or they send it overseas. It doesn't matter to me. All I know, because this is not a transparent organization whatsoever, is that there's a printing press, they use it, and we don't know a thing about what the hell they do behind the scenes. All we get is their statements. All we get are the meeting minutes and some little bits of data here and there from the different central bankers and what they're willing to share with the public. They are purposely creating an environment that will cause a crisis. This crisis will be so big that it will require some sort of major change to the monetary system. As a result, these central bankers will have an excuse to buy up the assets. Now, many people would say, that is fantastic. I hope they do that because that means my 7 shares of Amazon are going to go up in value. But that isn't the case. Printing money doesn't create value. In fact, it diminishes the value of those dollars that you hold. Of course, people want to hold assets, not cash, simply because they devalue the currency and then you have different assets rising as a result. Most of the negative yielding debt is in government bonds, in part because they are seen as ultra safe. I wouldn't agree with that. But there are also about $60 billion of US corporate bonds that are in the negative territory. I can't believe it, but this is the world we live in today. One big reason for falling yields is purchases by central banks. The ECB bought 2.6 trillion euro in government and corporate bonds as part of a stimulus program that ended in December. By the way, they are ready to print more money, so have no fear. As the economic picture has worsened, the bank has signaled those purchases might start again. I'm going to show you some detail directly from the ECB's own website. The APP, Asset Purchase Program, Cumulative Net Purchases by Program. And here you can see over the past few years that they printed literally trillions of euro to buy up all of the garbage in the Eurozone. There are different programs, the PSPP, CBPP3, CSPP, ABSPP. Are there any other letters of the alphabet that we need to use here? They print money out of thin air and they buy a whole bunch of garbage, okay? That's all you need to know. This is the breakdown and I'm just showing you something very clear, okay? People need to understand this, make note of this, and take it to heart. Look at what happened 2015, 2016, 2017, okay? So we could see that they were printing money every single month, no doubt about it. In this case here, we're looking at it peaking out around, let's say, 85 billion euro per month. And in 2015 and 2017, they were printing about 60 billion euro per month. However, in 2018, they decided to reduce their printing, not their balance sheet, but the amount of money that they they were printing. And that contraction actually started a wave, and you saw what occurred in 2018 itself. I mean, if you look at the chart, 2017, stocks were rising, everything was fantastic. As soon as January 2018 happened, the market fell. And as a result, if you look at the All Country World Index, you see this exact same thing. Let's just say that was January 2018. Right at this point, stocks still have not been able to break past that line, okay? That's what we're talking about today. The markets are completely enslaved by the central bankers, who will create a crisis intentionally, as they have done before and before and before, and then they will have an excuse to buy up all the assets, and people will beg and plead for resolution. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. When you click this button, you're supporting me. That's all you have to do, and I want to thank you for that. If you want to build a business, if you want to know how to actually make money, not to just put your money in the hands of some financial advisor, to actually provide yourself with an asset, I created a free, absolutely 100% free e-course, the AmazonGPS.com, that teaches you step by step how to make money on Amazon. Check it out, the AmazonGPS.com. If you want the financial education that was hidden from you intentionally, this financial system kept this info from you, and I'm bringing it to you here. How to make money, how to reduce your debt, how to profit, financial education top to bottom. Check it out at the link in the description. If you want the audiobook, that's available at themoneygps.com. If you want to know what is really going on, I just did this video and it is hot. You gotta watch it. Click on it and I will see you there.